Hi, welcome. This is the Addiction Show, and I am your host, Shira Goldberg. Today's guest is Cynthia Moreno Tuohy. She is the Executive Director of NAADAC, and that is the professional organization which I am very proud to be a member of. It's the Association for Addiction Professionals. So, Cynthia, thank you so much for joining us in Seattle.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's really cool to be here with you.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do? You've been the Executive Director of NAADAC for quite a while.
I've been the Executive Director for 10 years, and previous to that, I ran treatment programs in the Northwest and served on the board of NAADAC for many years. So volunteered and served, and who knew that someday I would be the Executive Director living in Washington, D.C. most of the time. Pretty amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you're bi-coastal, which I think that sounds fabulous. I don't know how practical it is for you.
It's working. Yeah. You make everything work in your life, right, when you got to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you are the voice and the face of NAADAC, pretty much, at least for me. I've been very involved in a certain capacity with NAADAC because I was one of those that as soon as I found out about NAADAC, I was off and running. So I was clicking around the NAADAC.org website, and I found that you have a lot of resources available to those that would be interested. So one of those resources is the Recovery to Practice, which I've taken, so I got my certification with that, and for you can explain what that is exactly, but I just have to tell you, I did take a couple of your webinars, and they were just fabulous, and that's how I found out you're also an author.
Yes, I also just came out with a book with Hazelton. It's on Amazon.com. It's called Rein in Your Brain, From Impulsivity to Thoughtful Living and Recovery. So it's really about recovery and trauma and working through your stuff so that you can live happy and healthy, change generations. You know, it's all about living your life better in recovery from anything, because most of us have several things, right?
Yeah.
that we're in recovery from. I certainly do. Yeah. So it's years of research and practical work and therapy. Because of my early trauma, I had a lot of work to do as well.
Mm-hmm. So your book is available now. I think it's really great how you're able to do so many. I mean, it seems like you're really spinning a lot of plates.
Well, I'm ADHD. My family says XYZ. So I have to do positive things to keep me, to keep me out of trouble. So, as much as possible to fill my life with things that are my mission and that that will help people and change lives. You know, change the world. That's all.
Yeah, that's all. We can do that.
Yes, one person at a time.
Well, before we got started, before we figured out how to get us live, get us going, you were talking about that, and that really struck a chord with me, because I feel the same way, that a lot of people that are involved with the recovery movement or in certain capacities, it's not just a job, it's truly a mission, and that's how you worded it, and that's how I feel too.
Yes. Well, and it's really great when your work can be your mission, because you're not feeling like you're working all the time. And I guess that the one side to be careful of is that you don't get addicted to your work. you know. But I think that what happens is that when you really love what you do and you really find meaning in it, it's almost difficult not to do it. So it's the thing that you do, and it's who you become. And it's not like you're trying to become something, you just do. And it's a reward into itself. And of course, anything that rewards your brain wants to do. So my brain wants to do this.
Well, I'm really glad your brain is so cooperative, because we we all benefit greatly from the work that you do. So tell us about some of the resources specifically that NAADAC offers people like me.
Well, you mentioned the Recovery to Practice, and this is a very exciting initiative that was started by SAMHSA about 5 years ago. And the addiction world came into it about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. And really it's looking at the concepts and the guiding principles for recovery. And NAADAC did a situational analysis where we interviewed in many different ways, persons in recovery, people, our counselors, other stakeholders, to find out what do they think about recovery. Where has it come from? Where is it going? And one of the things that we came from that is that we really need to have an understanding of our roots. Where did addiction counseling come from? What's that history? And Bill White, who's a wonderful researcher and historian, wrote Slaying the Dragon, and he has his new Slaying the Dragon out. He did 4 of the webinars with us. We have 9 on the Recovery to Practice initiative, and just really helping us understand where we come from and why this movement is so important and why recovery is kind of resurging. Because really, treatment is important. Without treatment, a lot of people don't get recovery. However, long-term recovery is the goal, is it not? And how do you stay in that goal? How do you stay in recovery? And what do you work on in order to make that happen? How do you live in community? Where does your family fit in? And where does the larger community fit in? And so the Recovery to Practice initiative goes through all of those concepts with different speakers. And the one that I did with Dan Griffin is really on the guiding principles, the things that guide you through recovery, and the things we need to pay attention to. Like that there's hope in recovery, and that it's self-directed. So, you know, we used to say, well, you know, tell them how to do recovery. Well, the answer is within you. You know, it can be so self-directed if we allow it. And so it's retraining counselors that the answer is within the person. Help them to arrive at that. What are the things that are going to strengthen their recovery? Because you want it to be strength-based, self-directed, hopeful, involve community and family. Look at the trauma. And this is what I have found. If we don't deal with our trauma, relapse becomes more prominent. So we must deal with our trauma, whatever that trauma is, and be able to identify it and heal from it and move on. So it's very self-empowering. So those resources, we have a certificate, as you said, a certificate in Recovery to Practice, and then we have lots of other certificates. One of the trainings that I do, intensive trainings I do for counselors and also for community peer recovery support workers, is on conflict resolution and how to change your brain. And it's changing your brain to think differently so that you're working through your frontal cortex instead of your limbic. Your limbic is where, of course, addiction resides, right? That's all that reward center and that fight and flight. So we identify that, and then we learn how do you move your neural pathways from your limbic to your frontal cortex, and how do you live in your frontal cortex. Much of it is communication, much of it is thought process, sometimes it's meditation. So we teach that. We do a whole series on medicated assisted treatment and recovery and why medications play a role. It's not a silver bullet. We make that really clear. It is a role, and that's an important resource to understand medication for opioid addiction. It's huge right now, opioid addiction, and medication for alcohol addiction. And someday we'll have a medication for cocaine, and we'll have a medication for marijuana. So it's important to understand that there is some science about medication that can be very helpful to us in our recovery if that's what we need to recover from.
Right.
So we do face-to-face trainings. We have a national conference coming up this week in Seattle. Woo, I'm very excited about that. It's our first time coming to Seattle. NAADAC celebrating 40 years. We have a new book coming out at the conference, so everybody attending the conference gets a free book. that William White wrote for us. Bill White wrote.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's about the history of addiction counseling and also NAADAC's role. So, and it is the history. It's like reading a history of the thing that you love and what your work is. So we hope for it not only to go out to counselors, and we want it to go out to educators, and so people don't lose what it is that makes us special and what it is that we've worked so hard to gain in addiction counseling. So the annual conference will have amazing pre-conferences. So six hours of intensive training. One is with Daryl Danava, who wrote Uppers, Downers, All Arounders, and he's going to do an intensive. And then we have Michael Wagner, who does ethics, and really looking at the shades of gray around ethics. That's where people get into trouble, right? Mm-hmm. What shade is this, you know? And then we have another one with Dr. David Neely on ASAM and DSM-5, which everybody loves. And then we go into the big kickoff. We're going to have a drumming circle. So because this is the Northwest, we're going to have a big Northwest flavor with Native Americanism, drumming circles. We're also going to have a gambling track. And then we're going to have like 40-some workshops to choose from over 3 days. And then we'll end with a series of post-conferences for people to choose. That includes the gambling track. We're doing one on co-occurring disorders because we have so many people that have mental health and addictive disorders. I'm doing conflict resolution, romancing the brain is what I like to call it. We've got one on how to be a presenter with Lori Crom from the National ATTC. And then we have and Jerry Schmidt on co-occurring. So it's going to be a full menu of possibilities to learn.
This is really a jam-packed conference, and also it's the 40th anniversary.
Right, right. And we're going to have a music jam and a live auction. So we have cool things coming in for the live auction. And we're going to have an awards lunch and announce our award winners for Counselor of the Year and Professional of the Year. And we're going to honor 3 addiction professionals who've died this past year, and honor their lives and what they've given to the addiction profession. So we are starting to lose people, which is kind of sad. And so we want to honor the work that they've done. So yeah, it's going to be, we're going to be on this range of emotion, right? From, wow, 40 years, you know, everybody's together. It's such a great network. And then we're going to have a little sadness. And then we're going to be happy again. So my eyes are burning already.
Yeah, you have to be happy with drums, with the drum circle. That's very cool. And I love that you're incorporating the local culture into, and that really shows a lot of people that, I always say, what we know, it's as fluid as a river. So yes, we base how we treat people that are interested in recovery on what we know, but we are also at liberty to think for ourselves. That's why I'm so into strength-based. I'm like, that is right up my alley. Yeah. So you can see what works for you, and then we are on this continuation of education and advocacy, just like, you know, what you guys do over there all the time. And it's really amazing. So I think to see the history of where we've come from, and it's really amazing to see where we are now and what's going to be available in the future. But I've really noticed that attitudes are changing, and I think they have to, because there's a lot of science now that is leading the way, and it's opening up our minds and saying, well, let's try this, because we all want the same solution, which is helping people find and maintain their recovery, or just to help them live healthier lives and find purpose. And so there's so much more to recovery than recovery.
Well, there's so much more, there's so much to recovery. I mean,
Yeah.
when you think about recovery, you're recovering who you are meant to be. You're recovering opportunities that you've lost. You're recovering, for many of us, our childhood. You know, and that's why some of us are becoming kids again. You know, you're recovering the generational grief. I mean, my family has generations of addiction and generations of sexual abuse and physical abuse. And so I have been doing a lot of family reconstruction and recovering the positive as well as the things that we have to be aware of and understand where our generational grief comes that we hold in our bodies. We don't, because it stays with us. It's passed down until we deal with it and then pass it away, move it away from our lives. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of that recovery process. And a lot of people do the hands-on recovery, like I'm not drinking, I'm not drugging, I'm going to mutual support groups, I'm living my life differently. But that real hard internal work, which is difficult to do and some of us try to avoid it, keeps coming up, and it shows up in relationships. And so that's one reason why also the work that I do on conflict and the book on impulse, creating a different impulse in your brain, is so important, because it really is about relationships and how do you do relationships differently. Because if we don't do those differently, it'll trigger all that negativity in our brain, and we'll want to drink or drug. So it's really, how do I do this differently this time, and how do I stay on a path, and then how do I teach this to my family and my friends and my colleagues so that we're supporting each other in our brain and in our emotion. So we're balanced, you know, mind, body, spirit. We're balanced in what we're doing together. And boy, isn't that the neatest way to live life, where we're all kind of thoughtful about each other and balancing and also calling each other on things that we need to be called on. Like, you know, sometimes people do get negative and sometimes they do get ornery. I know not you, but
yeah, I'm perfect.
So it's important that we're able to say, hey, you know, that was a limbic thought, or hey, that was a limbic reaction. Mm-hmm. Or be able to say, out of our insecurity, because some of us are still growing through insecurity, I was feeling insecure, and I need you to talk with me about that so that we can talk it through, particularly if you're in a relationship with someone, right? You need to be able to talk about that so that you can move away from it and let it go, because we hold it so tight. How many people do you know are still holding on to something 2 months later, 2 years later, 20 years later?
I was going to say 20 years later, yeah.
And it's like, we don't have to live like that. We don't have to do that. So it's really, really important that people have the opportunity to change. And NAADAC provides, you know, we provide a magazine with latest articles and brain science. Like you're saying, there's so much coming out. We work with NIDA, the National Institute on Drug Abuse. We work with SAMHSA, the Services Administration, Mental Health and Substance Abuse. We work with HRSA. We just talk about advocacy. I'm so excited about this. I have to share with you, for 8 years, we have been writing to HRSA and SAMHSA and meeting with Congress and telling them we need scholarship money, tuition scholarship money, for people to go back to college and get their master's degree.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know this.
Well, we've been doing this for 8 years. So, you know, NAADAC's been doing advocacy for almost 30 years.
Right.
This was an 8-year push. It finally came through in Congress this February, and we just learned, we wrote, we applied for the grant to be one of 2 organizations to deliver the grant, and we got it. So in 2015, we're going to be able to open up applications for scholarship for people to go to a 1-year or finish their addiction master's program.
Oh, that is just fantastic. Well, I will be applying. I
You
can wait.
only dedicate yourself to minorities and transition age youth.
That's fantastic. Oh,
It's
I'm
a,
so excited to hear that. You know, I didn't realize you were working on that, and I have said that many times that we need to we need to not only encourage people to be a part of the community that has helped them so much, but to be able to help those that want to help other people, because it's very expensive to go back to school.
yes. Yes, and there's not a lot of resources.
Right.
So we would like to, the next challenge will be getting scholarship money for the bachelor's level. So people who have maybe a 2-year degree but need help to go get their bachelor's, because it's changing. You know, it's to compete in the marketplace today, you need at least a bachelor's. You really need a master's for counseling. So to do clinical work, you know, it's going to move in that direction. So we want people to be able to go back to school and get their master's and be able to work and serve for a long, long time.
Oh, that is just the best news I could hear all week, at the very least. I'm so glad about that, because it's one of the things I complain about a lot, that there's not enough resources to help people go back to school. And with the loans, like I'm in the grad program at USF, and I'm really excited to be a part of that, but there's only one course for 1 credit at the end of my program. So that doesn't give me a lot of options to work with the population that I'm interested in. So I'm really glad, and I was saying that too. I need more education, specifically related to addiction and the history and what current trends and just what's going on and what's working right now. So you can't get that from my program.
You can get that from your program?
No, you can't. So yeah, there needs to be some, yeah, that's what I'm saying. There needs to be something like this available where people can get those higher degrees that have the specialty working with the people of this population. Because you really, I mean, it's different than just being a therapist.
You are so right. I was just going to say that. I'm a person in recovery from a family of addiction. I went to social work school, and they teach wonderful theory and methods, wonderful background. On addictive disorders, not so much. And so I took training in addiction, you know, alcohol and drug, pharmacology, physiology, how to work with the person who is addicted, what are the family issues. Of course, I knew some of those, but to really study it and to understand it and to have that level of knowledge and competency is very different. And I think that the big issue when you work in addictive disorders is you have to have an attitude of love and support, and that this isn't a moral issue, this isn't something to be judgmental about. This happens to people's brains and bodies, and if we get judgmental behind it, we'll never help that person, and they know it. You know, people who have addictive disorders, we smell fake. We smell it. You know, we smell plastic. You know, it's there, and it's like you can't pretend. You can't pretend that you love me when I see seeping out of your pores is disgust. You know, and people. I mean, I started working street. You know, in my early days, I worked, and all through my life, I've worked with street people, and they don't always smell good. They don't always dress very well. They don't always get to bathe. They don't always get to eat. They don't always talk, you know, nicely to you. And they're the best because they don't have anything to lose, and your position is to help them find within themselves a reason to change, if they want to. If they want to. And if they don't want to, I say, well, it's your choice. But I'm here to help support you if you want that support. And if you don't, I'm still here. Come see me. Come see me. Give you a sandwich. We'll hang out. You know, I'm just going to love on you because you deserve to be loved. You know, every single human being deserves to be loved. Every single one. And when we have that kind of attitude of service and giving and love for people, then they find the hope because they see it in you. If a client or a person can't see hope in you and you're the counselor, they'll never find it. So we have to be that light. We have to be that positive energy. And we have to care. And if I say to counselors over the years, if you can't find it within yourself to care for this person, don't be with them. Don't do that damage to them or to yourself.
Right.
You know, just go be with other people that you want to help. But don't be with these people because they'll smell you.
It's true. Well, I know you're really busy getting the conference together and you have a million things to do, but I really appreciate your just being so accessible to me, although it took a while to finally connect. But I thought what you're doing was so important. I really wanted for those people that weren't aware of just the depths of what you do, just to know these resources are available. And I'm really happy to hear about the news with the educational grants and scholarships, and just your compassion. It really shines through. You're like a ray of light.
Well, thank you. I didn't have a chance to tell you all the resources, so people please go to our website. There's so much more, and we do national certification and we do international work. I was in Egypt several months ago doing not only teaching counselors how to do therapy, but also helping them to put together their own certification system. And we do work all over the world. So for some counselors, they want to be able to go to different countries and work. And we're opening up those doors and continue to open up those doors. And at the national conference, we're hoping to have some of our Egyptian and Saudi Arabian colleagues with us. So we'll see if they get their visas and are able to come over and join us in Seattle. And next year we're going to be in the Washington, D.C. area. So just, yeah, stay connected. You know, that's the whole thing, is to stay connected and see what we're going to be up to next. You never know.
And people can be members, and if you're a member like me, you
Yes.
get great little magazine. So, and then this one actually happens to have the information about the conference that's going to be starting September 26th through August 1st. So check out the website NAADAC. It's NAADAC.org. Get some information about the conference. But yeah, just start clicking around and get involved.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Cynthia, you're such a pleasure, and I feel calmer just talking with you. So,
am I romancing your brain?
I think a little bit, just a little.
Yeah, that's how I live my life.
Well, that's a great way to start my day. So thank you so much, Cynthia Moreno Tuohy, the Executive Director of NAADAC. You can find out what they're doing. They're very open and embracing at NAADAC.org. Thanks again.
Thank you. We'll see you. Bye.